Uh-oh. Whoops, this is your line. Go for it, Stinky Singer.
And welcome to another edition of Gloves Off. I think this time we're going to have everybody introduce themselves because we actually have an extra guest who you guys can't see.
Wait, hold on. We're going to see
switch the camera.
You should do a better job of it. We have a secret weapon.
We do. Can we
say
a shot?
Call him.
Is he? Oh, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, there
Good
he
job.
Is, right there.
Oh, wait. Then you got a terrible shot of my hair.
Elvis Maldonado, all right, Homestead resident, all right, former councilman in the fine city of Homestead, and
joining the show today.
Join the show today. The more the merrier. We're going to talk about some interesting.
The more the unmerrier with you, David Singer.
So,
wait.
Go
You're
ahead.
Going to start? I'm not going to let you start. So, first of all, there's no disclaimer.
The whole time.
The opinions and views of the guest, host, and callers is not necessarily the opinions of community newspapers. And before we start, before we start, I brought a present
bag of toys
for my friend.
We have not seen this.
For my friend.
Okay, this is
David Winker.
Singer Stinky and David Winky.
I want you to see this. This is Gloves Off with David Singer. So I bought him a boxing game. I don't know if you were ever a kid.
I love it.
Okay.
That is so nice.
And I brought that for you because
I look forward to playing that with my daughter. And I'm happy to be here on Gloves Off. And
yeah, I heard you were playing with your daughter real boxing gloves, so I figured I'd get you a game instead.
Okay.
I love the interruption. I got to tell you something. I just came from court, and if a judge saw Grandpa Miller's behavior, like he would literally just be like, if you interrupt one more time, Grandpa Miller, I'm going to sanction you.
I don't get to talk at home very much, Susan. No, actually, no. David, are you trying to get on? Go ahead. It's your show. Tell us.
Stinky,
Winky, Grandpa Miller, and Elvis
Presley.
Elvis is in the house.
So anyway, you ever see Godfather 3?
Yes.
And he says on Godfather 3, every time I try to get out, they pull me back in, right? That's the way I feel about Palmetto Bay.
No, come on, why?
Literally,
former councilman who got his butt handed to him by Steve Cody by how many votes?
300.
300, and it still hurts him a little bit. But you're out there,
really
you're fighting, gloves off. All right,
but gloves off. The opposition and residents at community newspapers, the hub of community news. The opposition is stationed right here.
There you go.
The number 1 rated show on community newspapers. Number 1 watched show on community newspapers.
That's almost accurate.
Okay, so you know what? What's been going on at the Village is so egregious. It just deserves like an hour. And one of the things, the first thing I want to talk about, what's going on at the Village is there is a law on the books. It's called the Shannon-Melende Act. I think we covered a little bit of that last program, and Dade County has the law and Palmetto Bay has the law. And if you guys don't know about Shannon-Melende, okay, she was a college student who was going to Emory. She was basically kidnapped from her scorekeeping job at a park by a convicted rapist or convicted sex offender. Okay, he took her to her home, and he raped and murdered her in 1994. Okay, her parents are from South Florida. So after they found that she had been kidnapped and murdered, Dade County passed a law and Palmetto Bay passed a law, and it's basically the laws mirror each other. So what we found out, and by the way, if you guys want to call or write questions or anything, I was just told that I can't say kid, I have to say child. So I will do that going forward. If you guys want to write any comments or anything, you know where to reach us. If you want to call, it's 786-584-7665.
Will you get on with it already?
Okay, I am. I just wanted to.
Okay.
So anyway, so after this went down, Palmetto Bay passed an ordinance, and the ordinance was signed by five different people who were on the council at that time. Being the mayor was Gene Flynn, the vice mayor was Linda Robinson, council members Shelley Stanzik, Paul Neihart, and Ed Feller. So this was brought to the attention of the Village of Palmetto Bay.
Look under your picture, Gene Flynn.
Oh, Ha ha.
Okay,
Anyway,
wait. Before I'm going to interrupt you.
okay, go ahead. You can
So
interrupt.
you just said, by the way, I don't know if you were ever a kid. Who were you saying that to?
No, I got a thing that says don't know if you were ever a kid. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, I read that wrong. So you make me lose my train of thought, and that's a terrible thing when you're on a
Steve
talk
Cody,
show.
no wonder you beat him. Look at this guy. He can barely talk right here.
So anyway, so the village and Dade County put together an act. Okay, that's on the books of both the Village of Palmetto Bay and Dade County. Well, right now, the Village of Palmetto Bay is trying to water down the act because they found out the other day that they were not following the Shannon-Melende Act, and they're trying to water it down so they can have a fair, not a fair there, but a farmer's market without getting background checks.
And for the purpose of transparency, my brother, Scott Miller, has the contract with the Village of Palmetto Bay to provide a farmer's market on the site.
Correct.
Okay.
So Gene Flynn brought it to my attention that this act was passed in 2010. Okay. And I've been talking to some of the people at the council, and I wanted to know why they have not been following this act, because this act should be followed. And so instead of following the act, what do? There's a ordinance on going forward on Tuesday, okay, to water down the act so they don't have to get background checks on vendors or name tags on vendors that prove they have background checks. Okay, and the people that are leading the effort is the Village of Palmetto Bay's mayor, Karen Cunningham, and
but David, so why wouldn't the city go, you know what? We think we're covered, but let's go do it anyway because it might be a good thing to do. So what's your take on that?
You know, it's interesting, and it's kind of it's as only Singer can do to bring this sad. You know, this is a sad case, right? This Shannon-Melende. I forgot the circumstances of that, and it's interesting because I'm not sure that a background check would have stopped that murder, right? That was a drifter. That was not somebody who was a vendor.
Oh no, but that act would have stopped that. You know why?
That's all.
Because he was a umpire.
Oh, he was. Okay,
yeah,
so
he was an umpire there. Okay, and he had met her while she was a scorekeeper.
Enough said. Okay,
so
yeah,
okay.
So it would have stopped it. So the idea here is, I don't disagree, and it's interesting the interplay, which I'm sure with this giant stack of papers you're going to explain to us how this. I think of preemption. How can Palmetto Bay water down Miami-Dade? They can't. So we kind of run into a thing of how are they going to avoid the application of the Miami-Dade ordinance to it?
Well, it's home rule charter, right? So, I mean, but you would think that the village attorney who's trying to water down the act or the law would know about home rule, because Elvis told me that if Dade County has a stricter law than a Village of Palmetto Bay, okay, you have to go with, you got to go with Dade County.
Stronger law. That's what I'm saying. I don't understand the thinking, because this all seems to be an empty act, because then, great, you water down your law, but what's still going to be applicable is the Miami-Dade rule.
So with Miami-Dade County, if they hire a vendor to do an event at a place, does the county require the vendor to get all the information from each of those employees?
I mean, that's my understanding.
If it's a one-day event, it's not within the law. So, I mean, you can read it here. It says park vendors shall refer to any or full or part-time employees, agents, volunteers, independent contractors, or employees or volunteers of an independent contractor that has a contract with or permit from the Village of Palmetto Bay for rent or sale, food sale, beverage, sporting equipment, or any other goods or services in a park owned or operated by the village. The following persons and events shall be exempted from this definition. Okay, it says law enforcement personnel, emergency or fire personnel, persons conducting deliveries, national sporting events, one-day events.
Let's look from a political point, David Winker. He's an attorney. Why wouldn't a city say, you know what?
In an abundance of caution,
yes, let's just
do
go
the checks. And we all have done. I mean, I just did,
because this is an ongoing thing. It's not a one-time thing.
I just did a check for my daughter joined Boy Scouts, to the Scouts, and I had to do it as a parent. So, and we all know, I mean, like I wrote down my social, and my driver's license number, and you get a background check. So I did this idea that it's some in-depth thing. I don't disagree. I find it interesting. And then I have a question for you. It's interesting when I see this, I think about, we all make fun of carnies, right? Well, what happens at the Miami-Dade Fair vis-a-vis this? Did all those vendors, did all those guys that I see?
Specifically for carnies, it's in here.
Now, and I would also say that part of it, not to throw Michael's brother under the bus, but maybe part of the solution here is if you want the contract, you as the vendor, right, who brings the thing, will then you take care of the, you deliver.
It's $100 to run a background check.
No, it's not even that much.
Okay, so let's get down to the nitty gritty, right? Why would you not err on the side of children's safety? Why do you sit there, okay, and side with a third-party vendor who the village is actually subsidizing about $100,000 a year to have that, farmers market there? I mean, how can they sit there and throw the baby out with the bathwater and not do the responsible thing? And let me tell you something. Mayor Karen Cunningham, she worked as a teacher, and now she works for United Teachers Union, right? You got to sit there and think, oh my God, here she is working around kids or representing that she works around kids, not a teacher day. How can she sit there and try to water down and act specifically?
Mr. Flynn gave the answer, right? Proves Palmetto Bay is pro-business, business over children.
So this council on Tuesday night could say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to require it. And as a matter of fact, because we didn't tell the vendor ahead of time, all right, we're going to go pay the $100 or $80 or $50, whatever it is, and get it done. Because it would seem to me that would be a reasonable thing to do since now it's out in the public, all right? That the city's trying to, it looks like, either reaffirm something that wasn't clear or create something new.
They are trying to take what the farmer's market is, okay, and throw it under the definition of a festival, okay? And if you look at definitions, okay, of a festival, you know me, I'm always prepared, right? Let me see if I can find my definitions here. Hold on.
You're like the Bizarro Boy Scout.
Yeah.
Always prepared in a weird way.
No, it's just, the fact of the matter, if you're going to be talking about this stuff, you should be talking about it. Okay,
do you still have those dogs?
Yes, I do.
And while he's looking through this.
Okay, so here's a festival. So a festival's definition, okay, is a day or period of celebration, typically a religious ceremony, okay, or an annual celebration or anniversary. Okay, that's the definition. I'm sorry. You know what? A farmer's market doesn't fall under the definition of a festival.
Karen Cunningham here to object to that. Wherever he pulled up that definition.
Miss Mayor, the leader, leader down there. Maybe the city should say on Tuesday night, listen, how many people are there, Mr. Miller? We're going to go ahead and we're going to pay for it, all right? Because we should have told you ahead of time, all right? And just get it done.
Now, I know you can't read that, Grandpa Miller.
I can't.
So I'm going to read you a couple comments that kind of back you up. I think Mr. Flynn is right. He says the believed cost of a national background check is approximately $15 to $25.
Even if it was $100, it's good for a year.
No, but that's my
3 years.
experience.
3 years. You only have to do one background check.
So let me back
years.
up. Deidre Krause. Yeah. Thanks for tuning in. She makes a great comment calling me out saying, we all make fun of carnies. That's a good point. I don't know why I attacked carnies.
Yeah, it wasn't an attack. It was a question.
Yes, exactly. Now, last.
And by the way, the folks that are there, they're not carnies, right? We
no, they're probably
we're not talking about.
Yeah,
carnies,
we're not.
But and then it's interesting because Eugene Flynn says you can call it whatever you want, but the fact remains that the act should apply.
All right. So, Mr. Former Councilman Homestead, how long were you on the city council there?
For 10 years.
10 years.
Yes.
So, what's your experience with this?
Well, I think that when we were talking off camera about this a little bit, I'm jumping in here and was asking David, what are you guys talking about? He mentioned this Shannon Menendez, and I remember that. I remember all the news and how it was affected and the laws that came and it was something important. I mean, I think it's an important law, obviously, that the ordinance that they put in place to protect our kids. And so the question is, like, how do you water down, a law that was put by the county to municipality? And I said, just because I've been involved a lot with the Miami-Dade League of Cities and the Florida League of Cities and the National League of Cities, and they're really strong about home rule and its protection, right? Well, we don't have the state put mandates on cities and counties that affect them adversely. And so the home rule law provision that we have protects us from other laws that are going to, harm us or not work for us. So that being said, if they're going to try to water this down, I'm like, how can you do that? And I think it's really, they're going to have to use home rule charter, which will allow them, or should allow them, I'm not 100% sure, that should allow them to make this work for them. So,
yeah. I don't understand how you do that and usurp the basically the same law and rule or act that Dade County has. I mean, I got to tell you something. You've seen Jaws. Everybody's seen Jaws, right? Karen Cunningham reminds me of the mayor in Jaws who says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Go into the ocean. There's no sharks out there. Everybody will be okay."
Oh my God!
I'm not seriously. That's what she reminds me of. She seemed to close her eyes to any controversy.
Did you, when you were on the council down there before you got ousted? All right. Yeah. Did you think that of her?
Yes. Absolutely. Wow. I gotta ask you a question. I mean, honestly, have you ever heard of a mayor or a council being so complicit? Okay, that they'd sit there and they try to usurp a law to put in place to protect children. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
But by the way,
how much of a watered down?
They're basically exempting. They're basically exempting. Okay, they're calling. Hold on. They're calling the farmers market They're calling a farmers market a fair, which is basically a festival, and they're saying a gather of buyers and sellers at a particular place and time for trade, exhibition, and accompanying entertainment, sales of assorted articles, and a farmer's market.
All right, so here's the part that I'm really confused with. Why in good gracious does this thing need any clarification? It's like why do they need to do this if what they did was correct? And if what they did was not correct, they ought to just comply with it.
That's absolutely it. What they were doing was incorrect. So now, instead of saying, "Hey, we made a mistake. Yeah. Okay, let's fix the mistake and protect our kids."
This is how they're fixing it.
This is how they're fixing it by sitting there and throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I was going to ask you, it is interesting. It's almost like that reads like a spite to fight against the opposition in residence here, David Singer, to say yeah, you're right. And here's how we're going to do an end run around you.
Yeah. This
is actually a carnival or a festival.
And at the risk of children.
So at the risk of children. Who found this out? Somebody brought this to your attention?
Oh, this is going to be voted on.
No, not that. In the big picture.
Oh, the big picture? Gene Flynn said, "Hey, read the Shannon Melende Act," because he was mayor.
Oh, speaking of Gene Flynn, he wanted to know if Art Carney was in the building. No, that's Elvis is in the building.
Art Carney. That's funny.
So let me. I got to tell you something. Eugene, I've never had a conversation with the guy in the life, so don't think I'm supporting him. But his comments are so on point. And he asked, I hadn't thought about this honestly, is this idea of did the RFP seeking the bids for the farmers market, include the requirement? And it goes to the idea of typically if you bid to compete, which was this part of an RFP to run the?
Yes, it was. And
the idea is,
and the RFP was put out. I believe the RFP was actually put out by our village attorney, which I discussed last time, John Della Gloria, who actually had a long list of other municipalities that he worked with, and he should have known better.
Wasn't there something recently? There was this where they went back and they tried to fix it. There was something else recently. So instead of coming up to try to clarify their position, why don't they just fix it instead of changing the rules?
But
it reminds me of the city of South Miami and the noise ordinance. They couldn't get them on the noise ordinance, so they changed it so they could get them on it. You familiar with that, Mr. Winker?
But here's the difference. What's interesting about it is interesting. It would be interesting to see the RFP to see if your brother is out of compliance with the RFP.
No, I don't think the RFP. I don't think the RFP mentioned it.
But there'll be a catch-all compliance with laws.
But the village wants that event there, all right?
Yes.
And why does the city why do so many people go there?
It's entertainment.
Okay.
They
want it. It's not as though, all right. So they should do whatever they need to do to fix it instead of going back and changing the rules or making it clear. It seems to be.
Why would you sit there and literally you have a law that's protecting children? Why would Patrick or Leanne or Marcia or Steve Cody, why would anybody sit there and vote to water down a law protecting children?
Well, so here what they're doing is covering themselves legally instead of just saying, all right, listen, Mr. Miller, you've got 2 weeks to get this done. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, as a matter of fact, because the city screwed it up, right? The city should pay the $2,000 or $3,000. All right. and be done with it.
and be done with it. And it's it's good for 3 years, right? So if you do a background check, they don't need another one for 3 years.
Has anybody done a background check on you?
Yeah, I've
recently?
actually had background checks.
Okay,
done.
what did it show, Mr.
It
Singer?
showed nothing much.
Let me ask you a question. The Shannon Millennium Act, was that just for protection within parks, or how is that?
No, it's actually parks.
Because if it's just parks, or now they're adding the definition of what gives it that definition that is protecting of children, right? Because obviously a farmer's market is more of a family environment that's going to have children there, and then there's a park where the kids are going to be playing there. Like we all know, like anyone that has a sexual offender criminal record cannot go a certain amount of distance from schools or parks where kids normally are at, right? And so, but that's parks or schools, which are very
Well, the schools
defined.
have schools. Yeah,
So,
I mean, schools are tough.
So how does this differ, or are they trying to include it in there as a carnival, which has kids?
No, a festival. We're not allowed to have carnivals.
Well,
And
that's
I don't
what
think
I'm
we're allowed. I don't think we're allowed to have carnivals in Pomino Bay, from what I understand.
Except for the one that meets every other Tuesday.
Yeah, it took a while. Wait, I got something else to throw in there.
Before you leave this, though, one thing I want to point out, it's very
No,
interesting.
we're going to leave this for a while.
We're talking $15 to $25, and it's they actually, the next thing I wanted to look at was, okay, you get a background check, like what, then you get the results, like what does it mean, right? And it's interesting because there's a very specific list of things that, if you have this, you're prohibited. And the list is convicted of a violent felony within the past 5 years, convicted of a felony involving trafficking of drugs, 2 or more convictions for a violent felony, sexual offender or sexual predator, or proof of U.S. legal immigration status. So it's interesting because it's such a, that's a very finite, it's very specific as to what would trigger you not to be there. And one of the ways I would, I'm going back to Michael's question is like, it's like, I think we can all agree that we probably don't want those people working around, with the exception of the legal immigrants. I don't know about that part, but these other things, we don't want those people working around in a park around our kids.
Yeah, no.
So it's, it is, I think we'd want to know this. I mean, I think that's the way that I kind of back into it, Michael. I think we all agree something terrible happened, a law was passed, and we don't want to avoid the application of this. Let me ask a question, not to put you on the spot, Michael, but how many people are we talking about that would work at?
I have no idea. I have zero idea.
I mean, are we talking 20 people?
Yeah, 50.
50? You think there's that many even at the
Yeah,
farmers
so
market?
some of the booths have 2 people. Maybe
How many
in.
booths are there?
I don't know, 35, 40.
I don't know.
I don't know. It changes.
But where I'm going with this is,
Yeah.
so let's say it's $20. You're talking about $1,000.
Listen,
guys.
if I was your brother, I can tell honestly, if I was your brother, I would sit there and say, "Hey, you're right. Let me go get.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, just because it's your
Scott, if you're going to do it,
Yeah,
I'll
I
pay
mean,
$250
honestly,
of it. There you go. You got some money out of
the
me.
fact that-
$250 bucks.
honestly,
all right?
the fact that
and Winker's going to do $5
he-
or lunch at Arbetters. Whatever happens
the
first.
fact is,
We're
the
going
fact
there
is that
afterwards.
he wants to do a workaround with the village shows that
Wait, you don't
he's
know
gonna
that
place
he
it-
wants to do it. The city wants to do
the
it.
city would not be going this route if he didn't sit there and say, "Look, I really don't want to do it." But in my opinion, I can't see anybody who would sit there and say,
I'll
I
play
want-
the devil's advocate.
Okay.
You don't know that. and
I don't know it.
that. All right.
Correct. Okay, so
the
here,
the city needs to address the issue and take care of it and stop screwing around with this. All right, that's all.
it's terrible. Okay, so here's the other thing that I got looked at. Article 7, parks and preserve lands and whatever. Okay, it says on here restrictions and exemptions. Private commercial use of a public park or renewals, expansions, and extensions of existing leases, licenses, or concessions to a private party of a public park property, unless each structure, lease, license, whatever, is not allowed. So if you look, I don't know, do you know anything about Article 7?
I do.
Okay, this is the language. You tell me with that language how you even have a farmer's market within Carr Reef Park.
I have no clue.
Yeah, it's interesting because okay, so let me back up. This language. I always point to this when I fight things on parks.
Is that county?
This is county.
County.
This is section 7 of the county code. I want you to. This language is so broad, and it always comes up in my cases because I'm going to go to the first thing, but let me read it again because we kind of mumbled over it. But
Yeah, because he kept talking while I was reading it.
private commercial use of a public park. So let's talk about. I remember my daughter doing soccer with Super Soccer Stars. Like, not to throw them under the bus, they're a great program, but they
That's
take
exempt,
place
by
at
the way.
parks.
It's
Oh, it
exempt.
is?
Yeah,
For what?
Yeah.
For why?
It's exempt. Sporting events and stuff like that are exempt.
Okay, so unless, and then the idea here is, but what it really goes to concessions to private parties.
Mhm.
You're saying that falls under this,
Yeah.
right? This is a concession. Unless, and then it's interesting. It talks about. Let me go back to how this is kind of, I think, so broad it's unenforceable. But there shall be no permanent structures or private commercial advertising erected in a public park. This is without a countywide referendum. We all know in our county, they're putting stuff up all the time. West Matheson, they're putting up a boardwalk. My argument is you can't even put the board up without doing it.
Crandon Park for years. Crandon, the zoo out there.
But all those
the
people are
tennis
advertising.
for years, and
I know that's what
They're
I'm
all
saying.
advertising products,
no,
and
it's-
they're
it's
all advertising product. And your brother Scott happens to be a private commercial. He's running a commercial farmers market.
and a very popular one, I might add.
It's popular.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Yes.
I think the farmers market is somewhat of a new concept, right? Not
Yeah.
not so new, but obviously with eating better and farm to table and having organic, it's something that's new. And how new is it compared to where the Article 7 is in place, where now we might have to just revisit these things, these issues, and get them corrected.
Okay, in South Miami, they have a small farmers market. It's on city property. Pinecrest, it's on Pinecrest property,
Correct.
right? In Palmetto Bay, all right, it's on county property.
Well, it's a
Or-
park. It's a park that was turned over to the Village of Palmetto Bay, was a county property, and they have to actually live by some of the county rules.
So in Pinecrest, and the mayor was just here.
Mhm.
My question is: so how is having it on the Pinecrest property different than Palmetto Bay? And those are private vendors that are there, aren't
Mhm.
they?
Yeah, no, it's in a
South
parking lot.
Miami,
It's in a parking lot.
right?
So is it okay to
how
have
are
it?
those different?
Is it okay to have it in the parking lot and not on the grass? I don't know.
Uh,
I'm just bringing that up because I read it today, and I'm like, it seems to
Okay.
me like it should be excluded.
Okay, where's Earth Bunny?
Where's Earth? I don't know. I got
Hey,
to
we need
get
our comments back, Howard.
So
let me because
okay.
no, Grandpa can't read. Let me just bring up
Okay.
a couple really good points. The Tony Musto brings up the an idea again. I'm afraid he brings a reasonable argument, which is maybe if it's a one-time thing, there's an exception.
There is an exception
But they-
one time.
Right, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
It's like, but if they come every week, they should have it. I think also, what was the Lisa attacking Elvis?
Yeah. This is someone, she does this. She has some babies.
Edward Silva brings up a good point. Careful if they did it prior to Article 7 adoption, they are exempt. Pinecrest didn't use county funds. And I did want to point that out as a lawyer, is it does say this 7
Mhm.
is
What's the date?
lands that are acquired. I'll get to that in a second, but it is lands acquired by the county for preservation. Okay. It's a fund. This is a special fund for, so we'd have to look at the history of the park to answer Eugene's question of like, bring it back to the park.
Okay, but I bet you $1,000 right now that once again, when they did the RFP, they didn't even think about Article 7 or address it.
That's my point. There was something that happened not too long ago. It was the same sort of thing where they forgot to do it, then they went back and they fixed it up, right? So the question is, why are they taking care of the problem by attempting to change the rule on that?
Because they're wrong, and they can't admit they're wrong.
So what if they said, all right, I remember what it was. It was the asphalt around the tree.
Yeah.
All right.
the
All right.
same
They
thing.
found out this guy brings
Back
it
to
up with
Earth
Earth Bunny.
Did
Right.
you-
It's going to kill the tree. So
Did
they
you
went
say
out and
asphalt?
they fixed it.
So they're asking, they're asking, is this new guy actually the Earth Bunny?
That's you.
So listen. So I'll tell you something.
What
Which
color
will-
friggin'
wait,
is
wait,
yours,
I
buddy?
got one for you, and you'll shake your
Hey,
head, right?
there's Grant Miller.
There's the baby.
Okay, Winky, Stinky, Grandpa Miller, and Elvis is in the house.
Hey,
and Howard.
Okay, so this is my comment. You're going to be shaking your head.
We
Okay,
solved-
where
but for
are
the
vendors'
record-
hot dogs?
For the record, we've solved nothing.
Yeah. button your button. Anyway, so
And what are you looking there for? Dessert?
because you're sexy. Anyway, so I'm telling you right now, if badges were proclamations,
Yeah.
everybody at the farmers market would have one from Karen Cunningham. Okay, the mayor.
Listen, she's going to be mayor for the rest of this term and for the next one
Oh,
too.
God.
When's that election down there?
That's okay. I'm moving to Pinecrest.
Okay,
Okay.
2022 should be maybe 2026 should.
You
should go
better
on
get used to
something
the
else.
opposition in residence at
Yeah.
Community News.
So anyway, instead, look, all I got to do is say, instead of protecting our children, the mayor and village attorney
What
have
el-
been looking for
What,
loopholes.
what else you
That's
got?
it.
That's
That's
it for the whole thing.
So
No,
let
that's
me
good.
stop you. Let me
That's it.
stop you. So what I love about this is, what I miss is, as everyone knows, I grew up in Canada, grew up in a parliamentary system. In
Hey.
a parliamentary system, I'm American, by the way. I was born in America, but I grew up in Western Canada. In a parliamentary system, you would have the opposition, right? They sit on each side of the chamber, and you would have David Singer yelling at Karen Cunningham, "You screwed up, you did this, whatever." But Karen would get to yell back, and it would be interesting to hear what Karen's argument is in support of this, because it does. I got to tell you something from an outside observer. I have nothing to do with Palmetto Bay. It does look bad because you're not addressing it head on. You're just coming up with a way to get around it. And it will be interesting to see what the community says about this.
Oh wait, I got one better than that.
So what do you want the what,
Okay, I got
what
one-
do you want the community to do, David?
I want them to demand that
Just
people
David.
get back. Oh, I want them to demand that there's background checks and they follow the law.
Well,
But
I
I got
think-
one
I
for
think-
that. So I sat there and wrote a letter to them that says, look, you know what? If you don't sit there and follow the law, then I'm gonna hire an attorney like Winker here, and I'm gonna sue you. And they wrote back, you have no standing. So
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, they would rather have me kicked out of court for no standing than sit there and fight the
What-
law in court and justify where they were.
Well, who has standing if a resident doesn't?
I have a kid that goes to that park.
Yeah, I was just saying
I would have to have
that's a
standing.
very complicated
Yeah.
subject, and they do fight it, and it's
Yeah.
interesting because
But can
I've
you
had
imagine to get rid of
Yeah.
it because I didn't have standing instead of fighting?
I've
it
had
and
clients
saying-
say, "Great, bring the suit, Winker, kick me out on standing because I'm going to be raising hell." That again, you on a technicality are trying to eliminate my argument. That's what
That's right.
David's.
So
That's right.
why
It's
don't you invite anybody from the council?
Okay, I've invited
Look at the camera.
anybody from the council who wants to debate me on this or any other subject which is going on at the Village Palmetto Bay is more than welcome to come in here and go an hour one-on-one with David
I want to
Singer.
hear what does Steve Cody
Really?
have to say about this?
Yes, and Patrick Fiore. Patrick, I'll stand in between the two of you.
No,
Right.
Patrick's Patrick is Patrick,
All right.
and Patrick needs to stand up for the kids.
All right.
And every single council member needs to stand up for the kids, and they're just
He's
not
been
doing it.
standing up for kids for 30 years,
I know.
by the way. All right, helping kids. So this might be a next time. And that council ought to consider looking at whoever's in charge over there. Say, listen, yeah, we could do that, but why don't we just take care of the problem? All right, they could do it like this. All right, we're going to pay for it, whatever it is. All right, and then
They've already dropped
the next guy
$100,000,
around,
yeah.
whoever
Yeah.
that is, all right, then we'll know what to do. All right.
I'd be happy to drop $250 to have. You'll drop $250. I'll drop $250.
So you
and
got
we're gonna-
$500
you got
right here.
$500 you got $500 to run background
And
checks.
I want you to give $100
No,
to
the
Animal
best thing- I
Services
gotta
to
tell you
take care of a
something.
little
I'm
dog
going
over
to
there.
cut this to the chase because then what we're going to do is if you're out there and you run a background check company,
Yeah.
give us a discount.
Okay,
We'll advertise the hell out of you,
there you go.
and we're going to do it ourselves.
They cannot.
You know, if we stand here
They-
long enough, we'll just be paying people
No,
a lot
they-
of money.
listen, the
The
We're
Earth
gonna-
Bunny, we promise the Earth Bunny will show up at the park wearing a placard
Yeah.
from your background check company.
They cannot.
instead
in
of
all,
people trying to get campaign money, we'll be giving
Yeah.
them money.
they cannot, in all consciousness, sit there and dilute this law. They just can't do it. It's just ridiculous.
Okay, Earth
When are
Bunny
you going to be on the show?
When's Earth Bunny coming on the show?
I don't know. I got to contact.
What
I
color
gotta
fingernail
contact
polish you have today?
I gotta. Okay, so
What else
do
you got?
No, you got something
Okay,
here.
so
Okay.
this is on Gene Flynn's or somebody's thing about the clock on City Hall down there in Village Hall. Is the clock working? The real question of time, Gene Flynn, is what time is it? All right, time for what? All right. So over here, I'm going to read something. The fact that It's occurring. This is on Facebook. Points to the fact that people can't see the forest for the trees. It shows that concentrating on what's below rather than what's looking up. Time is slower at the library. Wait until November, and it will be correct. Bob Slater,
I
thank
haven't
you
talked
for
to
that.
Bob Slater in forever.
Okay, Bob said maybe that's it. We all bought clocks made in Arizona. So we
Going back, and you got to go back to the first comment.
All right.
We blew past it.
Okay.
But what was it? The third comment from Eugene Flynn about how QAnon has announced that David Singer will be reinstated by August.
I'm not exactly sure what that means, by the way.
But
I know what
saying
QAnon
Trump.
is. Yeah.
They're saying Trump's going to be reinstated.
Yeah.
Now they're throwing you in there.
Yeah.
That you're going to be reinstated.
You know what?
I
I will not serve if elected. Who said that?
I
Who
will
said
not
I serve if elected? Who said that? Somebody famous said that.
David, you don't have to worry about
Oh
getting
my
elected.
God.
You're done down there.
I do have a question.
Okay.
It is very interesting we can't be so one-sided, and I know we got to figure out a way to get the other side of this. I would like to know what it is besides spiting the opposition of David Singer. What is the idea here? Is the idea that it is so onerous that we're going to discourage business by requiring these background checks, or did they just forget it and they're covering up?
I think knowing the people that are at the Village right now, I'm telling you, the reason they're not following through with this is they refuse to admit that they made a mistake.
Did you bring it up?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's why it's interesting.
Absolutely. So they will sit there. So they will sit there because they will endanger kids' lives. Okay, because they're afraid to admit a mistake because I brought it up.
Okay.
And I got to tell you a story.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Quick story about good governance. So I fight. I have a lot of fights going on in Key Biscayne, and they involve people. There's things going on in Key Biscayne. It's very contentious. People are fighting $100 million bond and different things that are going on. But I want to say this in support of Key Biscayne and a lesson for all cities. Key Biscayne tried to pass a law, or did pass a law, that bicyclists could not come into the Village. I mean, Elvis, your reaction was like, as a lawyer, I'm like, you can't do that. Like, that's what the U.S.
You represented the bicyclists.
Well, I represent the bicycle. They reached out to me and they said, would you write a letter? So I spent 45 minutes. The case law is so clear. I wrote a letter to the Village manager saying, like, stop the BS. You can't do this. And it was very interesting because I got a letter back from Weiss Serota. And the letter basically said,
Well, that was a $4,000 letter.
It basically said, screw you, Winker. We don't agree with you, but we're lifting the ban.
Right.
And I think there's an element here, a lesson for Palmetto Bay. If they're really doing that, what I would have said is I would have wrote you a letter
that says, screw you, Singer.
Screw you.
It wouldn't be the first time somebody
You're
said
wrong, but we're going to start.
But
Don't admit anything and do the right thing.
Okay.
By the way, just wait. Just look, I know we're laughing about this, but this is a serious subject. I mean, and the fact that this young lady was killed is a serious subject. So we're not trying to make humor out of it.
And you tied it back. I got to tell you something. You corrected me
humor.
that this law would have prevented or likely would have prevented, because that sex offender or whatever he had in his background
might have been discovered.
Would not have.
Yeah, he would have been discovered. Well,
he would have been. Well, I don't know his past record, but he would have been discovered, and he wouldn't have been. He wouldn't have been there around the kids.
Okay, I want to, before I forget, Ed Silva, former city manager, longtime resident of Palmetto Bay, he says, I believe that the clock, all right, the broken clock is on the agenda, and they were going to propose a committee to prove that the clock is the previous council's fault and the administration's fault. They will open the meeting, make the allegations, and never bring it back up again. So you're probably right. While they're screwing around with this clock thing, they ought to say, as council has said over here, listen, forget it, Singer. You're wrong.
You're full of it.
You're full of it. But we're going to be a little. We're going to be cautious.
I love that.
Do a records request and see how many times it's been fixed. Right? What's the problems on that? I'm sure you'll find it.
It's funny that you bring that up too, because on Miami Beach, same problem. That big clock, the big digital clock's broken. It's funny how we care about those clocks, and that's a good story.
There, it's more of a tourist attraction, believe it or not. Every time they're there, you see the temperature. Like, you're somewhere cold, I'm somewhere hot.
Oh,
that's what it's for.
All right. So we got Grant Miller standing over there with Howard.
Grant, not to put you on the spot, but you know what we're talking about here. As somebody who's involved in youth sports, I mean, I can't tell you. I get background checks. Seems like 2 or 3 times a year. Every time I sign up.
There's a reason why you get checked.
Yeah, exactly.
they haven't found it yet.
The same reason you go to your proctologist.
City of Miami. I always say, City of Miami did a 96-page dossier on me, the world's most boring dossier. But Grant, do you on this? And again, not to put you on the spot or in the specific circumstances, but is it like my experience? And anytime you get involved in anything, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts.
The question
Background
is,
check.
are they involved with children? If they're not involved with children, that's a different thing. But I just think that the county attorney should make a ruling on it. They need to be more
Call
specific,
Cunningham now.
right?
Yeah, we need a clarification. It's
Lisa
interesting
Myers.
because I think it was Edward Silva brought up, the history of this, that it was acquired by the county, then it was given to Pinecrest. So whether Article 7, Palmetto Bay, whether Article 7 actually applies to it, and it would be interesting to see what the city attorneys, Palmetto Bay's attorneys, does Article 7 apply to this? Because if it does, that's a non-starter.
Oh no, I'll be happy to call Miami-Dade County and ask them if Article 7.
Grant, it's they were doing this to justify the term, whether it's a farmer's market or a fair or whatever, but it that bypasses the whole intent of it. Instead of just the city doing it or paying to have it done at this point. So you've been involved with youth sports your entire life.
Tropical Park. What's that thing? That crazy.
Come talk over here.
The Christmas, the what do they call it? We try to think of it as the
Christmas.
Enchanted
Santa Land.
Okay, do they get checked?
We don't know.
That's the only question.
Well, I assure you, according to this law, they need to be checked.
Correct.
Correct. This law requires that Enchanted Forest gets
That
checked.
process is actually identified during the procurement process, or if there's an RFP or bid process. They're in procurement. They're going to require, whether certifications, whether there are notices, whatever they need to have. So that's being done over at the procurement section.
Would you? All right. So Lisa Myers has challenged me to call Karen Cunningham. All right. So I'm going to call.
We're
her.
all about equal time here.
All right. So you go ahead. I'm going to see if I can get her on the phone.
Okay. So what I was going to talk about was the fact that cruise lines and COVID shots, and the fact that cruise lines have a right to dictate who gets on their boats and who doesn't, because of the liability that they have to incur. And apparently the governor passed some sort of law that says that they have to take everybody, whether
executive order that you cannot have vaccine passports. You cannot require vaccination.
You have any feelings on that? Because I just think that's.
I got to tell you something. I'm very sympathetic to people who don't want to get the vaccine. I'm vaccinated. My family's vaccinated. I was in a rush to get vaccinated. So I don't come from that, but I understand the legal concerns of people who, do that. But I think legally, the law is on the side of the cruise ships. And as a lawyer, I will tell you that the litigation that's about to ensue of you went to the hospital and you got COVID, if you can show that they didn't do what they were supposed to do, the hospital's gonna be liable. But there's no protections in place for that. So the idea, if you're a cruise ship and God forbid there's an outbreak and 500 people die, that the liability is going to put you out of business.
Yeah, so they have that issue even before COVID, right? Because cruise ships. I mean, you've been on cruises. I've been on cruises. I think we all. Elvis, have you been on a cruise?
You're right, because you're probably giving your experience. Whenever I went on a cruise ship, and this may say to what I did on the cruise ship, but when I come home and just I'm sick. I have that whatever that what's that thing they called there's a name for it.
It was
the stomach flu.
Yeah, it was basically
Norwalk. We all come home with a Norwalk.
So can you?
Automatic, right? You go
It's
to the ship,
automatic.
And they have to spray and all that stuff. So can you imagine? Okay, so this is probably more transferable than the Norwalk. COVID is a very okay. So can you imagine if they had people on the cruise? I mean, they'd be stuck out in the middle of the sea. When people had COVID, they were stuck out in the middle of the sea. They couldn't even come back to port. Yep. Okay. On top of that, where they go, the Bahamas or some of the other islands, they may have rules about people getting off the boat without being vaccinated. How do you dictate, okay, if you're in government, that a private enterprise has to take everybody? I mean, explain that to me.
Well, I think from a separation of powers issue, it really is a problem. And you know, I think, like, not to give us a history lesson, but remember,
I want a history lesson.
we were 13 colonies. We came together in an agreement called the Constitution, and we gave certain powers to the federal government so we could work better together. And this is exactly the kind of thing where it's like, it's the Army, immigration, foreign policy, and a health concern like this is exactly why we have a federal government. The idea is to have a uniform policy so that Florida can't ban this, but then you can go get on a cruise in Jacksonville by going up to Brunswick, Georgia. Like this whole thing, interstate commerce idea, is to prevent that. So I think in the end the governor's going to lose. I think honestly, I don't want to ascribe it, make it too cast aspersions on our governor, but I think he sees it as a political point. I think he knows he's going to lose the case in a court of law. I think he wants to show that he's on the side of people who don't want to get it.
Yeah, but he's delaying the fact that he's delaying the ability.
I don't think he's going to delay. I don't think he's going to delay anything. I think the courts are going to throw it out.
Okay, so let's talk about the new law in the state of Florida.
But hold on for a second. Everyone's upset at you. You're very ineffective in your phone calling.
I know.
What's the update?
All right, so just so you know, so I text her. I text the mayor. Thank you very much, Lisa, for pushing us around. My texter was, Karen, we're on Facebook Live now. Want to chat with us right now? It's live. It'll be good. And she said that I decline. I am at work. Okay, so there you are.
Oh, I've never seen her at work. Would that be the United Teachers of Dane?
I think
that
so.
She's at work.
Okay, so the state has a new law that's being challenged by all the big telecom
I saw that.
companies, which says the essence of it is
they just filed suit
that
today.
Those private companies do not have a right to cancel people that they don't want on their platform for political or social reasons, all right, or for whatever the reasons were. So let's start over here. If you have some comments, if you're making comments, Elvis, and somebody writes stuff on your comments, and it's just you have interpreted that you don't want that there, all right, because you don't like it for whatever reason, what would you do? How about you?
You know, my life.
You have no conscience.
Wait, stop. I could read some emails, and I may do that next week, where somebody threatened to kill me.
Yes, okay, I'm sure they have.
Okay, and said I'm coming over to kill you or beat you up, not kill me. I don't want to, exaggerate it. But they said I'm coming to beat you up. Okay, I'm coming over to your house. I gave the guy my address. Okay, as a typical David Singer. These are great. The guy spent an hour on the phone, on Facebook, telling me how he's coming over to kick my butt to be outside in the street. First, he said he was coming over, answer the door if he knocks. Okay, so I said, okay, here's my address. I'm here by myself. Please.
It's all about me, baby.
Okay, please come on over. I'm waiting for you. I'm home alone. I'm bored. This was Friday night. Okay, I was home alone. I wasn't doing anything. I was tired. So then he says, okay, I'm not knocking on your door because you're going to call the police. I go, okay, I'll go outside.
I'll meet you outside.
I'll meet you outside. Okay, I'm on my way over.
All right.
And he never. I mean, you should read. You read these emails. The guys.
Waker.
The point is. The solution.
So what do you think? Does the government have the right?
Solution from David Singer is let's all get collective fist fights.
At this point, does the government have a right to say you have to leave this stuff on, even if it violates your rules that everybody agreed to up front, and that leaves?
No, it's ridiculous.
Which part is ridiculous?
I think that you have to leave it on.
What do you think, Waker?
So it's such a complicated question. I would tell you, to sum it up, I have a friend who covers Latin America. And he said to me, he's very rarely seen a political party or a candidate who was banned that didn't get strengthened by that and come back. And I think a little bit of this is this idea of the marketplace of ideas, which I believe in, versus the idea of like some speech is so odious that we don't want to deal with it, right? So if you go on a platform and you're a Holocaust denier, I think that we would all agree we've decided that that's not something that we want to engage in. It's offensive to people. We know the truth of what happened, and we're not going to engage it like on a daily basis. No one wants to see Nazi paraphernalia or whatever. So I think that is the question. does, banning Trump for, the reason given for inciting an insurrection, do we all agree that that is it? And I find it very interesting, again, from a separation of powers, that you have a state that's saying, you cannot do that. And
Would you have banned Trump? Just curious. If you ran Facebook or Twitter or anything,
I wouldn't have.
I wouldn't have either.
I thought it was very effective.
I wouldn't have either.
I love
Okay.
when every time he'd tweet, there'd be like a big correction. This is not true.
Every time he tweets, he just shows his ignorance. I wouldn't have banned him. I don't believe in banning,
No, I want to ask.
neo-Nazis.
Okay,
Well,
so
And I'm
I
Jewish.
agree. I agree. Now let me
The
back
devil
up.
you know is better than
And
the
I
devil
want to
you
hear.
don't know.
I want to hear you, Michael, and then I want to make a point. Go ahead.
So when people were running for mayor down here last November, it was common that the Republicans would put onto our comment section when we were running stories about the current mayor, and they would call her socialist, and they would put up Nazi, all this stuff. So we were faced with: do we let it be? Do we want to be the distributor of that content, even though we didn't write it? All right,
Yep.
and let our platform distribute something that I find really offensive. All right.
So can
And one time I left it, all right? Then finally I said, you know what? I'm going to delete it. Then next time around, I just hit it. And the hiding is they don't know that it's gone, but I know that it's gone, all right? So that's the chicken way, all right? The real way is you either leave it or you take it off. And you have to make a decision whether.
And here's what I'd say, but it's also a policy that we all agree. You can make a policy to agree on. But here's my question. Okay, so then the other to finish the thought, I would bring up the following. When I was
before you finish the thought,
Yep.
I don't want to do this. I've rented so much space in Stacey Lawrence's head for free that she hates my guts, but she manages to watch an hour of my show. So you got to figure.
Stacey, is he the grown baby on this show?
It's amazing. There's so much rent in Stacey's head. Whatever's in her hair. I got a couch, I got a chair, I got a dinner table, all for free in Stacey's head.
Stacey, I don't know you, but I have to defend you. I think it was such a good comment. I love what she says. Just summed it up. Boring. She hated your story about the fist fight. We never heard the end of the story.
I'll tell you, you don't have to.
Everyone's cheering. Everyone's cheering that David Singer got his butt beat in his front yard.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish it.
When I was in law school, a long time ago, right in the early '90s, there was one of the cases you study is the Nazis marching through Skokie. And here's my Jewish. I'm not Jewish.
Yeah.
My Jewish professor saying, and I believe him saying, I had a grandparent or parent, whatever he said in the Holocaust, and I will fight to the death for these Nazis' rights.
Oh, so I agree completely. So would I.
March through Skokie.
Absolutely.
But that applies to this. So it's like, I think the problem is those of us who watched it, and I watched the insurrection live. I happened to be home.
But that's different.
And my daughter and me and my wife watching it and getting very upset and worried, and my daughter watching us get worried. Kids know what's going on, and having my daughter asking questions. What is happening? Why are they doing that? And I, like, it was upsetting. And I think as a country, we're upset. And then the last thing I'll finish you with, so I bring it up against that, and then I will tell you, I have friends that are in the military who scare me because they say the following: I'm in the military. And if you and I, David Singer, agree, we're going to run across the street and we're going to attack that. And if halfway across the street you turn and you run back and leave me alone,
I'm going to shoot you.
Well, no, but they're going to literally take you and in front of everybody, put a bullet in your brain. And their attitude toward the insurrection is every one of those people that pinged inside the Capitol should be hung on the Capitol steps. Like that, I've had people in the military say that. So it's such, I bring that up. I don't agree with it, but I bring it up, or all thrown in Guantanamo or whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But here's why I bring it up. It's so contentious. Like that is in defense of this. The level of concern that people have of shutting down the speech is saying our democracy is at stake. So I got to tell you something. I see both sides of it. How do you react to that idea?
Okay, so let me separate that a little. Skokie, number one, is they actually got a permit to march. They had to get a permit to march. Okay, unfortunately, Skokie happened to be, when they marched, it was a very Jewish, because I'm Jewish, so I have relatives that lived in Skokie. Okay, they did not have a permit to go into the Capitol. They basically it was breaking and entering. Okay, if they were sitting outside of the Capitol and
every right to be
every
there,
right to be there,
hold speeches,
okay,
sleep out,
whatever, speak
I gotcha.
out, because I'm a firm believer in freedom of speech.
But so that is different than having a private company that's in the distribution.
Yeah, but what they're
content.
saying, I know, but that's why I'm asking the question of, is there, everyone was so concerned that we're on the brink of losing our democracy. Are we willing, the stress test? I don't think we passed the stress test, which was we were very quick to allow private companies to do it. Now, I think the other thing that begs the question of, these private companies have become more like public utilities. It's like a phone line, right?
Because they have no competition.
Well, I think the argument is kind of the First Amendment argument, right? Where these platforms have gotten so big, and obviously they are political tools because we advertise on them, that when you remove that person from the platform, then you remove that voice, that is that First Amendment, the right to speak, because they're looking. I guess they're looking at it as it's gotten so big that I think we need to move it to a utility, and then how the utilities are regulated, where you can't
listen. Yeah, I mean, freedom of speech is you can say whatever you want as long as you don't scream fire in a theater, right? So the law is let them say whatever they want, but let them not scream fire.
All right, so David Winkler, I understand what you're saying. At what point do you just let it happen and see what occurs? Because that's the true test of democracy. The people can say that, right? But when it gets personalized to each of us that are in the distribution of content, and each of us do that. If somebody was on your stuff, we got 4 minutes left, and on your stuff distributing content that you found really offensive for whatever reasons were, all right, left, center, whatever it was, all right, and if you're whatever it is, right? That you say, okay, what do I want to do? Do I want to be part of that, or do you say I can be above that?
Yeah, and I gotta say, what I would do to support your position further, it's also something to say, like, we all agree by these rules, right? We all agree that we're going to live by the following rules, and so it's not like it's. I guess the point is, if that's arbitrarily whoever's opinion that is, that doesn't work for me. But if we all agree in advance by signing on to Twitter that you are going to agree to the following rules and you break them, then
we did, but you do though.
That's what I'm saying.
But yeah, but you do. But the fact of the matter is, sitting there, I don't know if you break the ruls with freedom of speech.
So here's my question.
So
let's say it counts really that it's in local politics in South Florida. All right, some guy's running for a county office and it's like really offensive. All right. Somebody would have to say they were offensive, whoever that was. Does that mean that if we don't allow that person to do that and we cut them off, that we're going to wind up having to pay a fine and having to hire David Winkler to defend us?
I'm already hiring him.
You're gonna have the Proud Boys show pretty soon.
No, I mean, the fact of the matter
we
is,
had him on.
You got to allow people freedom of speech. And if you don't want to read the nasty crap that you read, just turn it off.
But you know that it's almost like housekeeping, right? Like you don't like invite people, they come to your house and they don't just
throw garbage at your living room.
They please. There's rules to live by within your house. You come to my house, you sit down, and you don't do.
But somebody else is making the determination, right? Why should I make the determination of what they have to say, correct or incorrect? Who am I? I'm just one person.
Well, they don't want to lose. I mean, it's a platform. They don't want to lose their guest, right? They don't want. It's like you have a party, you have everyone over, you have that one guy in there just acting up and saying all these things, and it's like, for the rest of your guests, what do you do? Most of us, I think, would ask that one bad guest to lead the party, right?
So it's interesting. And words do matter, right? Whether the printed or said. But on the other hand, we can watch bullfighting and we can watch bare knuckles and MMA and boxing and do all the stuff, street fights, and that's all okay. Yeah. Hey, you got to wrap us up.
Before you wrap up, though, I got to say something. Lisa Meyer wraps it up perfectly with, Winker, what does this have to do with Stacey?
All right.
Okay, so one other thing. Okay, so
Winky,
singer,
Stinky, Grandpa Miller, and Elvis is in the house.
Okay, and don't forget, because we're starting to get some traction here. If you want to advertise on any of the shows, Okay, please contact.
And right up
Please
there.
contact. Please
That's
contact.
where you ought to be right there. It looks like it's a
community
big
newspaper,
finger, but
because
it's not.
we are making headway. Okay, and there's a lot of people that watch the shows. Thank you guys for being my guests, and we'll see you guys
promise
we'll
next
see you
time. Earth Bunny.
You're going to be.
Everybody's on the way.
I'm hiring Winker after this.
And thanks, thanks to David Arbetter. We wrapping it up, Howard. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Have a
guys.
great week. See you next Thursday at 4.